Hi, everyone. Good evening. I'm Debbie Schwartz, founder of Road to College and the Paying for College 101 group. I'm here tonight with Ellen Whalen, who is an independent college counselor, but has also worked with us for the past 4 years. And I'm just really being open tonight. We don't have slides. We don't have an agenda. All we have is 60 minutes. And we are here to answer any questions that you have. We could start off with, if people want to, and we can do this 2 ways. You can definitely put your questions in chat. If you want to unmute yourself, you can also raise your hand and we'll unmute you. To tell you the truth, we did something similar to this many times I guess it was the summer and the spring, with families who had questions about loans. And it was just like a little, it was nice. It was just people kept raising their hand, and then they would explain their situation, and then we'd share some comments, and then move on to the next question. So if anybody want to share in the chat, at least we could start there. Where you're at, where's your student at? How are you feeling? Essays started? Still massaging a college list? Has your student started the Common App yet? Kind of give us a sense of what's going on. Oh, I'm glad you're here from 11th grade, but I thought we had only invited 12th graders, so not that you're still welcome, but 11th grade. Okay, maybe we have to check on that list, but we're open to any questions, 11th or 12th grade. Wait, okay, so this is confusing to me. No, you say 11th grade West Coast started the Common App. Why would you be starting the Common App in 11th grade? I don't know if you want to unmute yourself and share with us what's going on.
Someone suggested to just create one and start filling out like the demographic information so that you can be ready when it's ready. So that's what
There's no harm. I'm glad you're taking a look at it. Actually, Ellen and I have tried to get people. We once tried to do a session to 11th graders, trying to look at the Common App so that you were aware of what was in it, so that, that you could kind of like work towards it. So I think it's great. The only thing to keep in mind is, that whatever account you're creating, well, I guess they might be able to roll it over, right, Ellen? Like for next season, because
Yes.
Yeah. So
Yep.
you will actually be able to roll it over when it opens up for your student on August 1st.
But not college specific sections.
Right. Just the general section. Okay, so that's good. That's nice to know. Okay, so I'm just going to start going down some of these questions, but also really, if you guys want to raise your hand and speak your question, I'm all for that too. So first question, should you send in SAT scores if your child is in the 25th of the admitted students?
Like,
so just so people
below the 25th or right?
I was just going to say, so maybe people don't realize, or we'll just explain. Usually colleges share kind of like the 25th to the 50th as a percentile, and then the 50th range, and then like the 75th and above. So if your students' SAT scores are at or around the 25th percentile, I mean, personally, and it's a test optional school, I wouldn't necessarily send it in. So unless, I don't know, I don't really know why you would send it in at the 25th. Ellen?
I'll tell you why.
Okay.
It depends on the high school, right? What is their average SAT? Because that could be a really good SAT for their school. So that would be a case to go check the high school profile or maybe ask the high school counselor. So there can be exceptions to that. And some schools like Connecticut College now are letting students submit, and then they're saying to them, we're going to remove your scores because they aren't good enough. In that we don't want it to penalize you, so they're taking it out for the student.
Oh, that's really interesting.
So they're looking at it in total and then saying, you know what, this doesn't help you. and we're taking it out.
Good for
But
them.
I think that's more of an anomaly, but I'm just
Right,
saying
right.
some schools are doing that.
Okay, so just maybe to continue with this before we move on, I mean, when do you think a student, and it's test optional, when do you think a student should send in their test scores?
Well, again, that 20 above the 25th percent, but even better above the 50th
Yeah.
percentile, and
Yeah.
even better above the 75th percentile for people who are chasing merit. Not to say they can't get merit below that, but to get top merit, as people look, someone mentioned financial safeties, like that can be a way to really capitalize upon financial safeties by having test scores above that 75th percentile. Because the GPAs are so, as we know, 4.0s are abundant and grade inflation is rampant. So that the test scores tend to be more of the commonality, universal, scoring. And so that's why the test scores can have more weight for additional for merit.
And just to go a little further on this topic, that's why it's also important to look at your school's profile to see, how your students' academics, their test score match up to the school specific. So just to see, is your student at the top, because that's what the admissions office is going to do. They either they are very comfortable with your school and they probably know a lot of this, off the top of their head, or if your school is new to them, they're going to absolutely pull up the school profile and kind of understand your high school, how many APs they might offer, how many students take the AP, how many students, go on to college, how many students take the SAT or ACT, and then they're going to kind of compare your student against that profile, because that's the only way for them to know, where your student falls in their high school community.
Yep. And some schools are really transparent. It's right on the main page of their website, and other ones bury it under the counselor section. And then other ones you can't find it at all. So you have to ask your counselor for it, but it should all be available. It's public information.
Okay, here's a common question on the Common App. Should I check the question that says, am I applying for financial aid? Yes or no? I'm certain we will not qualify for need-based aid. And then another person is asking, but what if I might need aid for private schools, but don't need it for public schools?
I don't remember that they ask on the Common App you're applying for financial aid. I'm just not, I don't remember that they do that. Do they?
I think so, yeah.
Okay, okay. So the financial aid question is a tricky question, because some schools, if you don't apply the first year and you lose your job, they will never, ever give you financial aid. Some other schools, if you don't apply the first year and you lose your job that year, they'll let you apply the second year. So that's the conundrum. In some schools, say you get an advantage when not applying for financial aid because they think you're full pay, and that sadly gives you an advantage in this process. But there's something to be said. Let's say you apply and your job, say that you're both doctors. Like, it's probably not looking likely that you need aid, or you're just looking for a little bit. Often even people that can pay at least like 35 to 40,000 can have an edge in admissions, because that covers a lot of the costs. So it's something you have to weigh, but generally in some places you have to fill out the FAFSA at the very least to get merit aid. So some schools do that because they do it for a number of reasons. One of them is to make sure they can maximize work study dollars. So that's one of the reasons they do it. So you can ask schools these questions. I have called like the financial aid department and had conversations with them. So I would encourage you to do that.
So I'm the one who posed the question.
Okay.
answer maybe then? I'm a little confused by your answer. Because I know
Everything always it depends is always the answer, right,
Yeah.
Debbie?
right. Because I want to be considered to have him be considered for merit-based aid. So I feel like I should check yes. But I don't know if that's going to ding our application because now they think that we need money, and clearly I'm not going to get any need-based.
Well,
Well, so
a lot of people do check it off though, right, Debbie? You know,
Yeah.
and they try to get it and they don't necessarily get it. So I don't know, that's a huge ding. And again, there are tells, what are your zip code? What are your professions? So you want to say, Debbie, something?
Yeah, I mean, if your goal is merit, right? First off, I would ask the school, does my student need to fill out FAFSA to be considered for merit? So find that out first.
Okay.
I mean, if you end up having to fill out FAFSA and and then they're going to see the FAFSA anyhow. So there's no harm, what you answer that question, yes or no, because they're going to have that information and make a decision about whether they're going to give you aid or not. I would honestly, I mean, I gotta tell you, I'm not quite sure it makes a huge difference.
Okay.
I wouldn't stress over it. That's, I guess, my point.
And you ladies say call the school, but he's applying to 11 schools. So I got to make 11 calls. And
Well, you could just begin by the ones that, are his top schools and just get a smattering and see what they say. You don't necessarily have to do every single school.
yeah. All right. Okay. That's helpful. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, so Clary, if I'm pronouncing your name right, you raised your hand. Do you want to unmute yourself?
Thank you, Debbie. Thank you for this. I have an interesting situation. My husband and I separated last year. We did file our taxes together, though. And I actually am not working since September. Our taxes for last year were ridiculous. We would not be qualifying for anything for our daughter, who's a senior. However, because I'm not working and I don't know when I'll be able to start working, I have been told that I need to submit the FAFSA regardless with the 2023 taxes, and that afterwards I would need to go to each individual college that I get an offer from and discuss then how to update or appeal or whatever. So I'm planning to submit the FAFSA with the 2023 taxes. Is that in your experience what happens?
Yes, it's the only thing you can do. In fact, now you have no other choice because it's electronically linked, so it's going to pull the 2023 taxes. And that is it's unfortunate and it's absolutely a pain because it's like you're going into the process and at the beginning of the process that that they're not using the correct information, but they can't use anything else until you appeal.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I have to wait until the process and then go to financial aid for those schools.
Yeah, I mean, maybe,
Or should I go before? I mean, I just don't know when does this happen?
it happens as soon as your student gets accepted and they get an offer.
Okay, got it.
Yeah, I mean, it's a process, not just for your situation and people who might have, they're lost a job, or a lot of times actually the 2023, in this case, taxes might just be an anomaly. Like maybe they, they just like I got some major bonus that doesn't reflect their normal year, and so they have to go and explain that. So there's a lot of different cases why the 2023 taxes might not reflect somebody's actual situation, and in all those cases they have to go through the appeal process.
Okay,
Yeah, and on
thank you.
on the CSS profile, there is the section where you can talk about you've got, I don't remember how many characters, but you can say something in that section. I don't think the FAFSA has it.
No,
Debbie.
it doesn't.
Yeah, okay. So there's that. It's called a professional judgment. So, and you could call anonymously to financial aid departments and just explain the situation if you're really curious or concerned. That's another thought. And someone just said, wrote that they were told tonight that they could not appeal until they accepted admissions. That is not true.
Not accepted until your student gets the offer.
When the student, exactly, the student has to be accepted into the school, but the student doesn't have to accept the offer.
Right.
You can appeal as soon as the student is accepted.
I mean, one other thing you might want to do, Clary, just to kind of be prepared, well, you might want to talk to, I mean, it doesn't have to be ours, but a college financial planner, so that you kind of know what you should present at the time that you're going to appeal. I'm pretty sure you might want to kind of redo your taxes to show, like, since you were separated in 2023, you can kind of show what your taxes would have been if you'd filed differently. So you might want to know those things and get that prepared ahead of time.
Thank you. And the FAFSA for this year will not come out in December, I've heard from one of the schools that my daughter and I visited. They said that the FAFSA usually was supposed to come out on December 1st, but they know that they're not going to be coming out December 1st. What are your thoughts?
So the FAFSA is supposed to come out October 1st. And last year,
Sorry, October 1st.
that's okay. You guys luckily, missed a fiasco. It's still it's lingering this year, but not as badly. So they delayed it to December 1st so that they truly are, and I think they will kind of be much better this year, but they when it really opens up for the population, that they won't have the issues that they had next year. So I think it will open up December 1st. I think there's been enough time and they know a lot of the issues that they'll be prepared. Okay, so going down the questions, Pamela's asking, how do you stand out for professional pilot when so few students are accepted? I guess,
Yeah, I haven't worked personally with the pilot. I've worked, with parents, lightly, but yeah, I don't have experience with pilots.
yeah, I don't either. I mean, I know the schools that they apply to, and they are very, very competitive. So sorry, we don't have more information about that.
Yeah, just do your best to stand out as much as you can and bring unique perspectives, potentially, even if it isn't related to flying, but just teamwork, leadership, just different interesting aspects of the student, along with, I imagine, good STEM grades.
Sorry, this is Pamela. Can I ask a follow-up to that?
Yeah.
Some of the schools have a 3-year program if you have a professional pilot license already going in, but there's nowhere on the Common App to tell them that you have this professional pilot.
Additional information section.
That's where you should put it, is the
100%. Yes.
Okay.
If you'll figure out by the end of tonight, Ellen is the queen of the Common App.
Except I forgot the FAFSA question,
Right,
whether you apply for financial aid. Forgot that part, but other than that, yes.
Yes, the additional, and maybe while we're on the topic, do you want to share, Ellen, the types of things that should go in the additional information section?
Yes. So often when I do Common App reviews, very few people use it. Even students that I'm shocked they haven't used it. I recently did a review on a student, and they had all these amazing awards, and it also had done really impressive activities that had huge impact, like statewide impacts. And it was great that they gave hard numbers of how many students were involved in their, the leadership that they had over like thousands of students. But I didn't know what he had done in the end. So you manage, 3,000 students across the state. But what did you do in the sense of what initiative, what project came about? So I just said, this is perfect for the additional information section. And also the awards he had won, some of them, define them for me. They were I think one was international, and just give me a little context. So those are two examples of when it can be used. It can be used when grades are down, for whatever reason, if it's just one bad grade, or if there's a downward trend, or even an upward trend. Like just say, I had a learning challenge and I didn't find out until sophomore year, so my freshman year grades weren't as good as they could be, but as soon as I got support, then they shot up, and I've really learned to, utilize the tools I've been given. And, so that's another way to use it, to explain an issue with grades. There could be another issue where student doesn't have a class you might expect them to have. Let's say maybe they don't have 4 years of a language at the more competitive schools. Because not every school wants that, but the more competitive schools want 4 years of the 5 core subjects, which are, English, math, science, history, and a foreign language. And so there could be a reason that the student didn't take, let's say, Spanish a senior year. So they can say, I wanted to double science, so I chose not to take Spanish. That's another reason to use the additional information section. Those are the first ones off the top of my head. You have any I'm missing, Debbie? I'm sure there's
No,
more.
I just want to kind of like emphasize that it is a good area to kind of like expand a little bit more. Don't be repetitive kind of, but use it to kind of to say, is there more I want the admissions office to know? Whether it's to expand on a really important honor or activity that you can't kind of get enough in the activities list, or, to explain, good and bad things that might be going on in your students' academic record, or social issues that might have happened. So, go ahead.
I thought of another one. So if your student is doing the IB and they have their extended essays, what topic do they choose? Maybe they're doing the AP research or the AP seminar. And so that could be something else to expand upon. So that's another one.
Okay, there's a question here. What's a good order to fill things out? So people are just asking, like, first, should I do the CSS profile, the Common App, the FAFSA? Well, Ellen, do you have an opinion?
All right.
First,
Well,
go ahead.
the Common App is the students. The parents, ideally, I know sadly some students have to fill out the financials, but the parents, that's the parents' job, in my opinion. If possible, they should be doing the financials. So have at it, right? But obviously the FAFSA isn't even open yet.
And the
I don't
CSS,
remember.
actually, it's kind of interesting. We did a session on the CSS, or kind of like general questions, and it's not supposed to open till October 1st, but we did see it open for some schools last week. But I mean, October 1st is right around the corner. Honestly, I would just wait.
Yes, exactly. So, yes, the students should be going, I hope they've started the Common App. If they haven't, they should be doing that. And there's just so many pieces. Like, we know the personal statement, that is a piece of the Common App. So even if they haven't gotten the demographics in, the Common App itself, aside from the essay, a student could probably fill it out in 2 hours. Now, it should probably, it needs to be edited. You get another pair of eyes on it, but to just get a good first rough draft on everything but the essays, it could be 2 hours or less.
So just to kind of reiterate, students don't have to wait until their personal essay is done before actually starting the Common App. Because sometimes I see that, and then they feel rushed on the Common App stuff.
Yeah, too many kids sit on the personal statement. I have
Yes.
kids that purchased, my help back in May and June. They have not finished their Common App. Excuse me, their personal statement. I haven't seen the Common App either. And they're still perseverating over the personal statement. And as I've said before, the supplemental essays are as important, if not more important nowadays than the personal statement. And, if they're looking, I don't know, spending 6 to 8 minutes nowadays, you're lucky on the whole application. Now, if a student really is impressive, I think they'll slow down more, that kind of stuff. But on average, those are the averages, and some of them are probably going to be less. And if you don't, at like some state schools where it's a bit admit by numbers, if you don't make the numbers right off academically, you're not, even going further. But yes, they should be working on the rest of the Common App. They can work on all of it in conjunction, because with the essays, they need to breathe, they need to sit, they need to come back. They're going to have 6, 7, 8 edits. drafts. So while they're doing that, they can work on the Common App, and they're completely different things in the sense of brain drain. Like filling
Right.
out the Common App isn't that complex. Sure, that it's a word puzzle, really maximizing the activities, but it's a lot more straightforward than the essay. So I think they should be doing both. And so many kids back when we went to school, there was very few early, and everything is pushed up. Most kids, I would imagine like 80% of kids, I don't know the exact numbers, unless they're going to like a community college, are applying to at least one school
Early.
November 1, if not
Yeah.
even earlier, with rolling admissions. Some kids have already got their applications in August.
Mm-hmm.
Not all of them, the rolling admission schools.
Right. So as a parent, I would honestly ask your student or sit down, make sure that, whatever list of schools that they are currently applying to, that you and they understand the deadlines that they're trying to work towards, whether they're early or whether they're the regular decision deadlines, and everything that is needed for that school. So the reason why I say that is sometimes until the student actually starts the Common App for that school, they don't realize that there could be additional essays that the school is asking for. They kind of don't get revealed until you go further into the Common App.
So that piggybacks on the questions someone's asking, does my son fill out one Common App or does he customize one Common App per school? So the main part of the Common App is what goes off to every school. Then under the individual college section, like Debbie was saying, there are individual questions like, do you plan on living on campus? Was your parent an alum, or is your parent an alum? What is your major? And those questions are individual to the college, and each application is sent off individually. You target one school, you fill out all that section in addition to the main part. Then you give them your credit card and you pay for that school. Now, some schools don't charge for Common App, for the Common App, but most do. So you pay, and that one is sent off. Now, the main part of the Common App can be altered for every single application. It is tricky. We don't recommend doing it because you could mess something up because you might forget. But if for some reason a student is applying to 2 majors, because not every school has that major, and they want to just tweak some activities or something, a line in their essay, they can do that. So each Common App application is a separate application.
So someone's mentioning here, Ellen, that their student they've done their list, they feel it's balanced, they've done most of the Common App, except they haven't finished their essay, or they're still kind of focusing a lot on it. And I'm assuming this is the parent saying that their daughter is placing too much importance on the essay. What's your opinion about it? Is that possible? Like, you know what I mean? Like, can the student place too much emphasis on the essay? And is she maybe, and I don't know what other schools she's applying to, is she also cognizant of the other essays she may or may not have to write, like supplementals, and so maybe saving enough time for that?
Well, when I work with students that spend a lot of time on the personal statement, I think a lot of them, and this is going to be a generalization, are perfectionists. And I think they get stuck and they just put all their effort into that. And they're getting very myopic and they're not seeing the big picture. And they need to keep moving and working on all the other parts. And they can keep coming back to the personal statement, but I wouldn't want the personal statement to keep them from moving forward. Everything can be moving forward together. And I strongly urge them to look at their supplemental essays. If the student is applying to highly competitive schools, they could have as many as 30 supplemental essays. Now, a lot of them are going to be similar topics, community essay, why this college, why this major, but a lot of the IBs also have unique questions, like write a letter to your roommate, or write a letter to thanking someone, expressing gratitude to someone. So there are unique essays, but a lot of them are similar. However, the length will vary. They could be 500 words, they could be 100 words for the same question. So then they have to be culled. So there's a lot of strategizing or nuance regarding
And
that.
personally, this is just, I find those shorter essays tougher
Yeah.
because you just have less space to really get in what you want to say.
Well, yeah, every word becomes vital when
right.
it's really short. So it just takes a long time to craft to still make it impactful, because they want to know that a student has done their homework. If it's a 100-word why this college, like Dartmouth and Tufts, have a why this college, and it's 100 words, and that is a challenge to do well.
So Ashley's saying she's that she thinks her daughter is a perfectionist. She hasn't started on the supplements. She's not she is applying to selective schools, but not Ivies. The selective schools will have supplements.
Yeah, and what's selective nowadays? Things under 35% acceptance rate nowadays. It's just highly competitive. So many schools, and even if your student is a top student, sometimes it's harder for them to get in to the little bit less selective colleges because those colleges don't think the student's going to come. So the student really has to go out of their way to show demonstrated interest, especially if the school cares about it. And then one of the ways they can do that is through putting extra time into the personal statement, the supplemental essay, to show that, hey, I did my research and this is what I really like about your school and this is what's unique about it. And so that takes time.
Okay, so somebody raised their hand. It's just listed as OM. So if you want to unmute yourself and ask your question, feel free to do that.
Hi. Okay, so Ellen was mentioning on the Common App that you could tweak the essay for different schools. So I know, yes, like for example, my son's applying to 12 schools. There's 23 essays in total, including the Common App. But I think 10 of the 12 also accept the Common App. So were you saying, this is my first one going to school, were you saying that you submit separately for each school so he could tweak his personal statement if he wanted to a little bit each time before he submits?
Yes.
Or do you document all the schools at once and then submit? No, you submit individually?
It's an individual application each time because it goes off with the individual college section with the supplemental essays and the questions. Are you going to live on campus? What majors do you want? Those are all individual college questions, because you might say you want to be, a rocket scientist, aerospace, whatever it is. And a lot of colleges don't have that. So that's under their college section of the options of majors. And so in another school, you might just do mechanical engineering. So in this scenario example, you might have the essay tweaked a little bit to highlight mechanical engineering.
But I wouldn't feel pressure that he has to tweak it for every school.
Of course not. And I wouldn't even, like Debbie and I say, I wouldn't even recommend it if you can help it, because you can mess up and forget to change it. Now you've got aerospace in there. College doesn't have an aerospace. And you have that in your personal statement. And then suddenly they're like, this person shouldn't even be applying here because we don't have what they want.
So you know how you're supposed to send friends and family this and that, and so that's the stage we're at just for the main personal statement. And some people are saying, oh, I love the way this sounds, but I would tie this back in to how he would be an asset to the school. Do we want to be doing that for if he's going to make the option to tweak it, or do you do that in their supplemental?
That is a supplemental essay case. Absolutely. No, your personal statement is general. It is personal. It is about you. It is not specific to a college.
Okay, so you were only saying related as far as like a major, but not necessarily to change you liking that school, how you'd fit into that, why they should choose you. Okay.
Because kids even mess up when it comes to supplemental essays, when it's a why this college, and they're like, oh, this is why I want to go to whatever it is, Cornell, and it's for Brown, because they forget to change it. That's the supplemental essay mistake. And some admissions officers say, too bad. You made a mistake, and that's a big one, and you're gone. Other ones say, we'll let it slide. So you never know what you're going to get on that front. But the more competitive the college, the more reason that they need to, if they have a 4% acceptance rate, they're looking for reasons to cut kids. So that's a good one that gives them a reason. So they want to be really mindful of not reusing essays as much as possible, even though they can be tweaked and stuff, but they just have to be very mindful. It's really important to get another pair of eyes on it, on stuff like that. The students should be writing, but the parents can be involved to make sure all the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed.
Okay, so just one more question on that personal statement. What would you say is the most emphasis you want to place on it? Is it the personality shining through? Is it, what is the biggest piece you want to get across in that one general essay, aside from the supplementals?
Well, the student's voice should come across. That's one thing. It should have a lot of details, because a lot of the essays fundamentally are similar, at least in theme, but it's the details that make them unique. So that's another piece. It should be reflection from high school. I just looked at an essay today, and I've seen this often. 80% of it is about before the student was in high school. It needs to be 80% about the high school, reflecting back perhaps on youth and from what an event that they learned from, that now they're applying what they've learned today and how they've grown from it, and how they're utilizing what they learned in everyday life through leadership, through how they're exploring their future major, whatever it is.
So they should, sorry, go ahead, Deb.
I was going to say, the one other thing I'll add is it also is good to have some sense of kind of what Ellen is talking about, and how that fits in for your student, about how they can be successful in college and beyond. You know what I mean? Because ultimately, colleges are picking students who, match or the philosophy of the college, sort of say, but they also want to feel like the student that they pick is ultimately going to become that successful alumni.
Okay.
And so your student has to show that they have that potential.
But they do want to also in the essay state how they learned from whatever, either the experience or the story. Because like my son's essay, his voice really comes through, and it's a really nice, fun story with tidbits here and there, but he didn't really relate it to what he's going to do in college, because he's saying, but my voice is coming through, I'm trying to sound like me. And
Yeah,
he thought that all of that's the supplementals. Is that not?
Well, it can be. Well, I like to say 1 or 2 sentences about the major, if possible.
In the Common App.
In the Common App personal
right.
statement, because not every college has a why this major question. A lot of them don't, especially less competitive. So, tying all these skills that I've learned will, be beneficial for whatever it is the student wants to do in the future. Or because of this experience, it sparked my interest in this, and this is what I want to study in school. That could be all is needed at the end.
Okay.
So your student can keep what they have potentially, but then wrap it up possibly in that context, if it flows that way.
Okay, but you're saying that more so because if they don't get another chance in another essay for that school, then they're going to want to reference that here.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
And I'll say another mistake I see is that a student will do a lot of telling and not showing. I'm a leader at my school, I
But
lead
not
this,
really
I do that.
describing what they do.
Yeah, and basically doing a running list of their resume. And that's an extreme, but really it needs to be telling a story, and through that story showing us how they exhibit leadership and how they're, exhibit kindness.
Thank you so much.
You're
No
welcome.
problem. Okay, Ricky from New Jersey, do you want to?
Yeah, I wanted to ask a question about, is there one place where you can type in your financial information and as opposed to each of this, calculators for each school, or as
Okay,
as
so
opposed to the SAI for SAI, or?
Yeah, so you're asking, is there one place where you can put in your financial information and kind of have all of the colleges formulas run against it, so you don't have to go to each school.
Yes.
So I haven't done it in a little bit, but I know if it's a CSS profile school, the College Board saves your information. And so what I used to do is I'd go and sign into the College Board first. I had my own account. And then I would go into a college's net price calculator, and it would like draw
The college net price calculator that's on the College Board site. Yes.
No, through the college. I would go into the college's
because
financial
the College
aid.
Board actually also has a list of all of the.
Okay, see, I didn't know that, Debbie. So
Yeah,
I would
yeah.
just go in through the financial aid page and do the net price calculator, and then it would hook up with that. I guess it makes sense because. So then I guess you go in through the College Board and just go to each individual ones. So what I would see would happen would be some colleges, the thing about the CSS profile is colleges they're about 300 questions, but colleges can also add additional questions. So like 95% of the questions would automatically populate, but there might be 2 or 3 more that I just had to answer individually. And so that's what I found was the quickest. Now, when it came to schools that are only using the FAFSA, that's a trickier matter. I had to fill out each one of them individually, but there is the FAFSA forecaster, which then is done through the feds, and that spits out their interpretation of the SAI, the Student Aid Index.
So wait, where's the other one? The
The
FAFSA?
FAFSA forecaster. I think it's FAFSAforecaster.com or .org.
Oh, no,
whatever
no,
it
no.
is.
You know what,
Sorry.
Alan? It's called, I actually can't remember the name of it. Here, I'll do it now. Wait, before I do that, let me just show you. Just so you guys can see. Can you see? Am I sharing?
Yes, yep.
This is the list on the College Board of all of the net price calculators that the College Board is doing the CSS profile for. So it just makes it easier.
I think there are over 300, right, Debbie?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So so that's an easier way of kind of doing what Ellen is suggesting. And then I can't remember. I always used to say I just look up SAI estimator. I think it's just real right. The federal, and there it is. Federal Student Aid Estimator. So that's what Ellen's referring to get your SAI.
And there still is the FAFSA forecaster. I don't know if they're the exact, send you the exact same.
Is that still around? Let me see.
I thought I had done it, and thought I had done it the other day. I'm looking it up right now. It comes up as the Federal Student Aid Estimator when I put in the FAFSA forecaster.
Yeah,
So,
I thought they took it down.
yeah, so they still might link that name, even though they
Oh, yes, they link the name, but they direct you
yes,
here.
Yes.
Yeah.
So would you go into the CSS the
College Board,
College Board and in as a student and just make yourself your own thing and then add your numbers in?
Yes, I mean, I did it. I started doing it years ago when my oldest, this is like 10 years ago, and I just every year would just play with the numbers and look at stuff. And yeah, I had my own College Board account.
Yeah.
And I think I have to have one ultimately anyway, because when I fill out the CSS profile, I as a parent have to have my own account. Anyway, but I think I had initially before I had applied, I had made up one for myself, like just a mock one. And then you can play with the numbers. You can put in like that you have home equity, and then you can put in you don't have home equity. And then you suddenly see how much the home equity is affecting your aid amount. Like say you're a renter versus you own your home fully. Like you can just see how much they're penalizing you or not for owning a home.
But your original question about like, is there a place to kind of put the information and just let all the colleges run against it is a great one. And quite honestly, about 8 or 9 years ago, there was a company that tried to do that, and they were kind of run out of town by the colleges.
Well, College Aid Pro, Debbie, does that though.
Well, they're doing it kind of like, they're as estimations, right?
Yes, yes.
They're not the actual formulas.
Correct, but
Yes.
they have people like former MIT financial aid officers.
Right.
So they're trying to do that to make it
Right.
easier for people. And I think they have like maybe 3 free. They have one or
Yes, I think
a
it is.
couple,
Yeah,
a couple free that you can try.
yeah,
What is it? College Aid?
College Aid Pro.
yeah. So, so some solutions, maybe not the most elegant, but but I would definitely try all these ways because it's important for you to estimate, what the costs are beforehand.
Someone had asked where you find the personal statement and the Common App. It's under the writing section. It's after the activities. That's where there's personal statement under the writing. There's the a COVID question if a student was affected by COVID, and then the additional information section. And then also if they had a change in progress where they either were graduating early or they had to take a year off from school, that's also there. But that's right after the activities.
Okay, Monica, you have your hand up. Do you want to unmute yourself?
Yeah, quick question. My kid's school uses Maya Learning, like instead of Naviance or whatever the other ones are. And I'm wondering if, I guess there's a place where you have to have the student's account linked, the Maya Learning account linked to the Common App in order for the recommendations to be submitted. And I'm wondering if we can submit applications before that link is done, because we're having a heck of a time getting his advisor to link the two accounts.
Yeah, that's a minutia type bureaucracy of schools that I don't have the answer to. I don't know.
Has he asked the college counselor, or the high school counselor at the school? And
yeah, and the college counselor says it's linked, but when we go to look at it, it doesn't look like it is. So I'm just curious. We want to get the applications in. I don't want to be waiting around for.
Well,
like,
I guess
that
I
link to happen.
I would ask that question. I don't know if you did. Did you ask that question to the school? Like, can you send in the applications before getting the recommendations sent in? I mean,
well,
honestly,
they can. That
usually
they
they
She's
can,
asking about the
yes.
linking, though.
Yeah, yeah.
You know,
No,
the
I'm
linking.
not asking you about the linking. I'll have to figure out the linking. What I'm asking you about is, can we submit the application
Yes.
without the recommendation names in there?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, you can send an application. I can't say whether or not, I don't know why you couldn't do it without the recommendation names, but I do know that a student,
Like if a
teachers are given a grace period after
right.
the deadline, because they know that students, teachers are juggling a lot. So let's say a student gets in their application by November 1, teachers haven't gotten their letters of rec in yet. It is okay. I think maybe they give them a grace period of like a week.
Yeah.
That's okay. So if that
Yeah.
kind of answers your question, yes.
Yeah. So so we're answering the question to some extent, like regardless of what system your school uses. It doesn't, whether they use Maya Learning, Score, Naviance. In general, the student can submit their application in and the recommendations don't have to be all set. They have to, obviously get there by some deadline, but they don't have to get there at the same time or before the student submits their application.
Okay, so it doesn't matter if it says like these are the two people that are going to write recommendations. The schools just sort of know recommendations are coming if they require.
Yeah, honestly, I bet you the college is not looking. They don't care what you has written about who's supposed to write it. They just care when they get the actual recommendations and whose names are on it.
Super, thank you.
Okay. Person has the initials EEH. Do you want to unmute yourself and ask your question?
Hi, yeah, thank you. So my student last spring had an injury and was taken out of her school sport. So that disabled her ability to play for that season. She's out for the whole year, so she can't play her club. She likely won't be able to play the sport this year in school either. So I'm assuming, okay, and then let me back up. So then she had surgery and now she's in about 12 hours of PT a week for this thing. I'm assuming that this is something to put under the additional information. She's very concerned that, it all of a sudden looks like she's not doing anything because this was her kind of main thing.
Yeah, so a lot of kids end up deciding their major is going to be PT
Right.
after that kind of
Yeah.
experience,
She
and then that becomes part
so
of the
decided
essay.
not. She is so decided that is not what she wants. But yeah, I mean, I guess I'm just looking for guidance around how do you effectively explain all that? You know, this was not a small thing.
Yeah, no, I mean, you just articulated it well, like something like that in the Common App, to the
Okay.
point.
And the
And,
additional.
you know, one could argue, you know, if the student is doing a lot of exercise rehabilitation, that could be an activity, right? If they're really,
Yeah.
you know,
Oh.
it takes up a lot of time, right, Debbie?
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
it's one of these
Yeah.
things, if they've got to, like, if a person is, the student's doing strength training for sports year round,
Yeah.
that's an activity. So this idea of getting back
They're
into
rehabbing
shape-
themselves. It's
Yeah.
a focus. Yeah.
Oh, that's a really good point. We hadn't thought about that. Thank you. And then do you have any recommendations? And I'm assuming, you know, we're just kind of like out of luck, but with this going away, it also, her kind of leadership opportunities also went away. She was, you know, kind of up for captain, and she was assisting the men's team and all of that. And she can't do any of that anymore. Is that again?
Yeah, the question is, how does she pivot?
Yeah,
That is the question. And so
Okay.
how does she, and then does she write about it? And that's, you know, so is she now doing online learning on her own because she has all this extra time? Is she doing
Right.
dives into YouTube videos?
I
You
mean,
know,
she may not be able to replicate a leadership position immediately because of, you know, the
Right.
timing of how, but I think to Ellen's point, if she can show that she's using her extra time in a different productive way,
Yeah.
Right.
that's valuable.
exhibiting
Okay.
intellectual curiosity.
Great. Thank you so much. I appreciate your time.
Okay, no problem. So I'm going to go back. I see there's one other raised hand, but let's answer a few questions because these two kind of are combined. Somebody's asking, what's your advice about how to prioritize the activities and awards section, and kind of going to combine in with that question, Ellen, that a college is also asking a student to upload a resume, and how should that differ from the activities section?
Okay. Well, I'll take the last first. The resume is going to be different because it's you can put as much in as you want. It's not 300 characters per activity, but generally I say don't go past 1 page. So it should be tight, but you can make the margins wide, stuff like that. So there's just going to be more context in the resume. There could be live links additionally. So there could be a photo of the student. So those are all extra things. The order, the question was order, right, Debbie?
Yeah.
So, you know, they're applying to be a student first, right? So which activities support what they want to study? Like, you know, there are many different ways to slice it and dice it. And many pieces of this process can be subjective. But that is one way to look at it and just say, okay, this is what I want to study. I might only have 20 hours doing it versus some other activities I have 200, but I want to lead with this. So that is a thought. And then, you know, what's most important to the student, and then group things together to give impact. So that's another way to do it. Regarding honors, I would lead with, like, if they have an international, national, state, lead with that first. The most impactful first is what I would do. And on that note, regarding APs, group the 5s together. Don't do it chronologically.
Well, and let's add in this quickly because somebody asked, how do you know whether or not to submit the AP scores?
Yeah. Well, so you want to go to the college, put in AP credit for whatever college it is. It will show what number they give credit for. If they don't give credit for it, you probably shouldn't share it. So this is going to be an example of where some state schools, a lot of them give credit for 3s, where your Ivies give mostly 5s and maybe a lucky 4 on like AP Calc BC. So this is where you're going to tweak the Common App. You aren't going to share those 3s with the Ivies, for example, but you might share 3 with your state school. So you can put things in, put test scores in and take them out, just like the SAT and ACT. Same idea.
Okay. Question, or it's really a statement, but I that's somebody saying, their students started the Common App, they started their essays, they finalized their list, although they're feeling that the colleges on their list are mainly financial reaches and they need to add more financial safeties. So the reason why I just wanted to highlight this comment is because it is a really important time in the process, and especially in the process of making sure that you have a college that your student can ultimately, or that you can afford for your student. You know, we have lots of little sayings, but one thing we say is that the college list drives everything, and you can't get money from a school your student didn't apply to. And it all comes around this college list and the deadline. So, so if you're feeling that there aren't enough financial safeties on that list, now is the time to find at least 2 schools that you feel more comfortable with, that if your student gets in, that either they will get enough merit aid to make the school affordable, or maybe just on the straight, you know, cost of attendance, you feel more comfortable about the price. But again, now is the time, because deadlines pass and you can't kind of go back and say, oh, we should have applied to that school. And we do see a lot of, I don't want to say regret, but kind of people who kind of like in that April and May timeframe where the numbers really become, you know, alive, and you're faced with, oh, my student only got into these schools and these are what these schools cost. You know, you kind of feel at that point you might not have options. Now you still have options. So take advantage of that and do your research and add a few financial safeties.
Yeah, and I also wonder why there's so many on there then if they can't be, if you can't afford it, like why?
Right.
You know, it's like the student that has a ton of top heavy schools. It, like Debbie says, come spring, they're like some kids only get into their state school. And we see so often, like, why did I try so hard? I killed myself for nothing. And, you know, college isn't a prize to be won, right? It's like, it's a match to be made. That's a counselor I listen to always says that. And it's just like, it's not about the ego. Like some kids just feel they just have to, you know, test the IVs, and it can really affect them. They can be, you know, it's not fun come the spring when if kids get a lot of rejections. That's very, very, you know, depressing, for lack of a better word. And so I strongly urge, you know, people to have a well-balanced list. And the more balanced it is, the more they can leverage schools to try to get more merit or financial aid, but they need to be in the same tier. So if you've got, you know, 10 schools that are in the stratosphere and they're lottery schools, then that limits what you can do on the bottom end.
Okay, Anna, do you want to unmute yourself?
Sure, thank you. Great point here. My question is about like demonstrated interest, just to talk a little bit about that, or other ways that you see that, you know, that can go on to your applications for school for kids. Yeah, how do you understand how to boost it a little, or just some tips on that would be great.
Well, you can go to the common data set and see if a school cares about demonstrated interest and how much they care. It's a very important, considered. So that's the first thing you want to do. There's so many different ways to show demonstrated interest. The first is applying early decision. That's like your biggest demonstrated interest one.
Yeah.
Obviously, not every school has that. Not everyone can do that. Another one is visiting. If you're within like 2 to 4 hours, you should probably try to visit. You know, if financially you can't, you know, but you reach out to your admissions officer, introduce yourself, interview if they have interviews, make sure they do stuff online. Maybe they, you know, reach out to an alum they know and then interview that alum, and then let the admissions officer know that, hey, I had this amazing interview with this alum and this is what they told me, and I'm very excited about this, about the school. So that's another way they can do it. The supplemental essays, really doing their homework on those to show that they've done demonstrated interest. So those are just a few. Debbie, do you have any that I missed?
I don't, did you mention just they could be writing the admissions officer with,
yeah, twice. Mentioned it twice.
Sorry, I was reading the rest
Oh, no,
of the
no,
question.
I'm not complaining. I know what that's like. I'm just saying, yes, I was thorough. I mentioned it in 2 different capacities. Yes.
And what was the first thing you said when you said check the,
You're on
check
mute,
the college
Debbie.
website? Oh, yeah.
I'm on mute.
No.
Oh, no, sorry.
I cannot hear you.
Sorry, maybe it might be your computer.
Yeah. So I'm sorry, you wanted us to repeat which
I
Oh, I'm
think
sorry. Just the very first thing you said was just to check
Oh, the
college
common data
website.
set, the
set.
common
Common
data
data
set.
set. Okay, thank you.
Yes, you can even just Google the college name and say, does this school care about demonstrated interest? Some websites have like listed of which schools do, or AI will come up and say, yes, they do. Now AI is so amazing.
I wouldn't trust AI, just so you know, just for
Okay,
this
well-
stuff, because that information sits within the common data set, and
Yep.
and AI can't actually access all of that. So
Okay.
just
But
something.
sometimes it cross parallel, whatever. But yes, the
Yeah.
common data set, is it under section C? Who knows? I think
Yeah.
it's C, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
Thank you. Great answers. I appreciate it. Thank
You're
you.
welcome.
Okay, here's a good quick question. Do I have to have all the application questions and additional essays complete for all my universities, but before I submit any of the applications? And do the transcripts have to be there before the student submits?
No.
No.
No, because each college is, has its own application. So Harvard doesn't care if Yale isn't done, for example. The Ivies just rattle off my head, but I don't mean to suggest everyone's applying to them. No, so that's that. And then the transcript is done by the counselor. Often that stuff lags, similar to the letters of rec.
Right, right.
So the student is responsible for what they can control, and they get that out. Then the other things can follow.
Here's a good question. When the application gives the option to answer additional, or sometimes they call it optional questions, should you?
So the statement or what the saying is there's nothing optional in admission.
It's unfortunate. They say it's optional, but honestly, every student who sees that, or most students, are going to fill it in. So yeah, optional unfortunately isn't optional.
Yeah, and if you flip it to the positive, it gives the student another opportunity to show another side of themselves and to show more demonstrated interest. So you can, if as much as a student doesn't want to write another essay, that is a positive way to look at it. The only time you wouldn't, if it's like, is there something you wanted to share and couldn't, or do you have a disciplinary action? There's times where absolutely you have no reason to fill it out. But the majority of the time, it's a question that you should do. Yes.
And the same thing, somebody said that there's a college that's saying that the letter of recommendation is optional. Again, I would take every opportunity, if they're giving it to you, and send more information about your student. So even though a letter of recommendation might be optional, if you have somebody who's going to write a good, a recommendation for your student, I would definitely send it in, even though
especially if it's already been written, because, the more competitive colleges want two, and then the counselor, and as you go down the imaginary ladder, they want fewer. But, if your student already has to have one for one college, then they already have a letter. So it's not a big deal to just send it. But there is a saying, the thicker the file, the thicker the student. So at some point you don't want to send, if they have the option of 6 recommendations, which sometimes they have 2 required and then 4 possible, suggested, or not, just possible, not suggested. You don't want to necessarily maximize that. You would be judicious in the people you choose to have send in letters.
If a school claims they are test optional, will not sending in the test score exclude the student from being reviewed for merit scholarships?
That's up to the school. You've got to ask that question.
You've got to ask the school, yes. And
that tends to be a little bit more state schools that tend to be, not exclusively, but they tend to be a little bit more driven that way. But yeah, you definitely have to ask them.
Okay, OM, you've raised your hand. Do you want to unmute and ask your question?
Hi, yes, okay, so I saw somebody asked about an advisor and how you write the letters. So I specifically am a homeschooler. My kids have taken like APs and dual enrollments, and I have transcripts from all these different schools, but I have to write, I have been told, a counselor letter and the advisor letter. And so do you have any, recommendations on that?
Well, I know that there's a new book that just came out that was written by homeschoolers that they're very thorough, and I would follow that book.
Okay. Do you know the name of it?
Not off the top of my head. But
Okay.
I think if you search it, they're two homeschooling mothers that wrote it. And I think
Thank
it
you.
just came out this year or last year. It's very recent and they cover everything really well.
Okay, thank you. One more question on that note, which might apply to others, so you might know this answer. Do a lot of the schools or all of the schools, or is it not one straight answer? As far as the transcripts, are they looking for, if somebody switched high schools, let's say, because like for me, we used several different online schools, but there are people who have been in full-time, brick and mortar where they went to one high school and switched. Do you know if the colleges request transcripts directly from them, or are we as parents supposed to compile a transcript?
Usually, I mean, that's a good question, but usually if they went to the school, usually the school has to provide it because that's their official transcript. So I don't know. That's the type of question you could ask admissions and just
Okay.
say, do you know, Debbie? I mean, that just.
I don't, yeah.
Yeah, generally they, draw, generally, if say someone asked about dual enrollment, right? Often dual enrollment can be, the high school can list the dual enrollment classes on the transcript, but there can be cases where they might have taken a college class that wasn't necessarily dual enrollment. So then they have to get that transcript from the college. So
Okay, so
every
then they do
situation
the
can be different, but yeah, in that case, it's a separate transcript and it has to come from the college.
So they would submit their high school and their dual enrollment transcripts. They're not asking you to compile into one. They're asking for the official from the schools, no matter how many.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
That would be my guess in your case also.
Okay. Thank
But
you so much.
but yeah, you're welcome, but I don't know for certain.
Thank you.
Here's a good question. On the Common App in the activities section, it asks if you want to continue the activity in college. Is it okay to say yes? And if you say yes to everything, does it look like you're being fake?
Well, some people have very pointed and in-depth activities that are going to correlate with what they want to do. So that could be okay, and no one's going to hold them to anything. And when I do like the Common App reviews, I barely look at that, and it might be more when they're looking at because someone's an oboe player and they know they need an oboe player. And so they're going to go, is the student considering it, continuing it, for example, I think they take a lot, just like majors, they take stuff with a grain of salt. But I think if the student's enthusiastic about everything they're doing and the school has it as an option or it's something that naturally they can progress with, I don't think anyone's going to question it because hopefully the student's doing something they love.
Okay, this will be our last question, but I think it's a good one to end on. Somebody is asking about honors colleges and programs. Are they worth applying to and enrolling in, or do they just involve more work? I assume they're asking more work when the student gets there, or how are they different than if the student wasn't in one of those programs?
Well, the point of those programs, my understanding, historically, they were added to kind of compete with liberal arts schools. They're trying to make large spaces smaller. They're trying to make not only the student body, but then also experiences and relationships with professors. And then they also might have like a capstone project. They can get sometimes I think they might get priority with classes.
They might even get priority housing.
Yeah, they might have separate housing.
Yeah.
Like at UMass Amherst, they have separate honors housing. They can't even accommodate everyone. But yes, there are definite benefits to do it. Some places require another application. And also like how supported. Some of them are like in name only, right? Do they have like a special dean for that college, for that, the honors program or the honors college? So you need to dig in, more deeply to see how the students are supported. But instead of being in like a 200-person auditorium, they might only cap everything in the honors program to 30, 40 kids. And the teachers, the professors are much more engaged and want to be involved with teaching in the honors program versus another professor might be really into research. And then you're dealing more with the TA. So generally, there's a lot of good reasons to consider if a student's in a large university. trying for it. They can always try it and drop out, you know?
Right.
And some students that don't get in, I know at UMass Amherst, they can apply again as sophomores. So if your student doesn't get in or doesn't realize that they would benefit from it, that's another option they can try later.
Yeah, personally, I would, I would try it, for all the things that Ellen said. And again, it's one of those things you may or may not be able to go back, but if your student has the opportunity now to apply, enroll, potentially get money from it, maybe get some other perks, why not? I was going to add something else, but I can't remember. But I think it's worth. Oh, what I was going to add is some schools invite you after you apply regularly to apply to the honors program. Honestly, in that case, also, if they're inviting you, I would definitely give it a shot. So, okay, everyone, hope this was helpful. It's kind of fun, kind of answering questions and not necessarily always presenting. So I hope that this gave answers to some of your questions. I'm sure that there's lots of other questions. Always there you can ask questions in the Paying for College 101 group. You can send me questions at support@road2college.com. If they're really quick, I can answer them. If you want a more thorough, review of some of the things that we've talked about tonight, we can help with. We do what Ellen's been referencing, a Common App review, which we'll look at the whole package. We'll look at the essay. We'll look at all the activities, edit everything, and kind of give an opinion about how everything holds together, particularly also knowing what schools your student might be applying to.
I think, Debbie, that's one of our best values. That's a real good bang for the buck.
Thank you for saying that. Yeah, I agree. It's really not expensive, and it kind of somebody mentioned.
Linda just asked how much it cost.
I think, yeah, hold on. Honestly, if you guys open your emails, we might be sending a discount tonight and
normally
tomorrow.
It's $400, isn't it, Debbie?
I was gonna say I think it's $399, but I think we're doing like $50 off, so it will be closer to $350. Yeah. So that's a good value. Another good value is we do something called we call it a review and polish. And that's just to look at the essay. I will caution that it's really best to use that when you truly think your student is like final with their essay and you want another kind of more professional set of eyes to look at it. So that's kind of like a quick, we will do a review. And then from that, we might say, you think it's a final, but you might need more work, and you can decide whether or not your student can go back and do more work on that.
Well, Debbie, I would pitch that as possible, that maybe doing that earlier on if they don't want to do our 4-hour essay package, because I can get essays that just have missed the mark and they're perfected, but they missed the mark for college, and then they put all that extra work in. So
that's a really good idea.
The other way.
Honestly, in terms of like that's $189. So that's a good point, Ellen. If you want to just like make sure your student, you think your student thinks that they're kind of like hitting the mark, but the essay really doesn't, because we'll do those reviews like up until, October 28th, for November 1st deadline. And
it depends how busy we are, Debbie.
Right. But we can give feedback, and then there just might not be enough time to really implement the feedback. So keep that in mind.
And just like in the Common App review, I do a cursory review of the essay, and I can say whether or not the essay is missing the mark too. So that's your best value, I think.
Right, because that looks at everything.
Yep. And then I meet with the family and we discuss stuff, and you guys can ask me questions, and I often uncover more aspects that can be highlighted in the Common App. I've helped a lot of families. It's kind of crazy, just like discover things that the student had never thought of as an activity.
Well, even tonight, like you said about the student doing PT.
Yeah.
So, okay, everyone. Well, thank you. Good luck. There's still time. But don't wait until, October 25th for November 1st deadline. Don't wait until November 1st for November 15th deadline. For your stress and your student stress, at least give yourself like 5 days before the deadline and kind of make that as like the official deadline 5 days before to say that, you know, everything needs to be ready then for lots of reasons. But I'll tell you just like the pure practical one is there are glitches the night before the deadline. There are problems sometimes with the system. It gets overloaded. Some schools are lenient, some schools are not.
Yeah.
And we just don't know who they're going to be.
Wang was asking how I do the review. So I send out instructions on how to add me as an advisor. Then I'm given access to the Common App. And then I go in and I can't change it, but I can view it. And I make I copy it into a Google Doc. And then I make all the edits in the Google Doc. And then we meet to discuss them.
Which is actually good advice. Again, whether you do a Common App review with us or not, is your student can get the PDF view of their Common App, which is just an easier way to kind of like scroll through everything.
Hey, hello, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, sorry, I couldn't get my audio working. Finally, it works. So I do need help. We have a October 1st deadline. Yeah, there's a one state school. The deadline is October 1st. So if I sign up tonight, will I get help before October 1st?
Is this for reviewing a Common App?
Yes.
Ellen's schedule, Ellen?
Yeah,
Oh.
I can do that.
Okay.
All right.
As long as you can turn around and meet me. Meet with me, yes, yeah.
Sure. Okay. Yeah. I will contact you. Thank you.
Yeah, call, message me at support@road2college.com. I will send you the link. We'll send you all the information. Honestly, if you could at least get it started tonight, and then Ellen can have everything by tomorrow.
Well, I mean, yeah, access, and I'll see if I can get it.
No, but at least you can have like all the
yeah, I just can't promise.
No, not that. Right.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Thank you very much. We'll talk offline.
Okay.
You're welcome.
Okay, everyone. Good night. See you soon.
Good night, everyone. Good luck.
Bye. Thanks, Ellen.
Welcome.